Hey guys, it's me, EODGamer here, and I think one of the biggest things that the whole community can agree on is how good Harmony characters are in general. And the question that we really have when we think about this character, yes, we know she's good, but the question generally is, where does she shine where the others can't shine as brightly as well? So in this video, we're talking about Hanya versus these four, and I'll talk about several things that I think make her outperform the others, and where she shines in this Harmony niche, so to speak. So, first things first, we don't waste time on this channel. Let's talk about the first topic that I want to talk about is skill points. Of course, this is probably one of the most important things about her kit, and that is of course giving huge amounts of skill points to the entire team with her E skill, which applies burden onto the enemy. When your teammates hit the enemy with their basic attack skill ultimate a couple of times, they get refunded all the energy back. So out of all the five Harmony characters that we currently have, she is by far the most skill point positive character in the team. Out of all four of them, probably the one that is in second would likely be a character like Tingyun, and these three drink skill points really free, especially if you don't have Bronya as E1. All of them really like to use their E as much as they can to buff the entire team. So these two probably are the most neutral-ish positive, but her is very clear, super positive, especially if you are looking to generate skill points for maybe a super hungry DPS like Tingyun or Imbibitor Lune, Danheng. Also, these characters will work really nicely with pairing with her as a good alternative. Maybe if you are feeling that Tingyun is a bit too busy on your team, you need a bit of a rotation so that each one can go in one half. So skill point positive, super good. But that's not the only thing. A lot of people think skill points ends there. If you don't have a skill point hungry character, then this is useless. Who cares about skill points? But not exactly the case. If you realize, for characters, let's say like Argenti, for example, basic attack and skill both give different amounts of energy to the character that is using it. This means that any characters that generate more skill points allows energy hungry DPSs to use their burst more often. So characters that rely on their ultimate uptime would, for example, be maybe Clara to some extent. She wants to use a skill, get her ultimate so she can use in that state. For example, Argenti also really likes to use his ultimate ability, is a big part of his kit. Using more skill points indirectly gives him energy. So that is another angle of thinking about it. It's not just skill points, it's also what they do with that skill points, which could easily be more energy for energy hungry characters. Maybe to some extent, I don't know, like her as well, if she uses skill points in her off state. But depending on what your roster looks like, probably less of an extent compared to characters like Argenti, who is very, very high in burst cost, very high and hungry for the energy requirement and skill points. So that is the first thing out of all of them, and the thing that makes her shine, obviously, to most people that would be analyzing her kit. The next one is also another one. Now, let's start off with the more easier ones, and we'll get more deeper into it. Physical teams definitely will benefit from her. For any of you maybe newer players who don't know why physical matters, who cares about their element, right? They all have different elements, but at the end of the day, they're OP. The reason why physical teams benefit a lot from Harmony characters specifically is because of Planetary Rendezvous. The light cone that buffs same type damage is a 4-star light cone, so it's reasonably accessible to most people. But Panacony Land of Dreams, the relic set, buffs physical damage if it's used on her, and it gives her energy restoration, which she doesn't mind as well, given that her burst cost is quite high too. So physical teams, for example, like Argenti, you have Clara, these kind of characters would definitely appreciate her a little bit more than other Harmony characters. But of course, maybe Clara doesn't care too much about speed. I'm just talking about the physical elements and future units that might come out. So physical characters in future definitely would like it a little bit more. The next thing I want to talk about is speed. Currently, Asta probably is the queen of speed. Her ultimate gives a lot of speed to the entire team. But for cases where you want speed on a particular character, but you don't really have a requirement for the other two characters having a lot of speed. Maybe, for example, Fucc is your last slot. She doesn't really care too much about speed. Her energy cost isn't too high. She doesn't really care too much about using her skill, basic attack and stuff. Doesn't really benefit a lot from the movement speed as well, other than for better uptime. In this case, a character like Hanya might not be that bad because you can use the ultimate on a particular unit to buff them up. Scales off with her particular speed too, which I think is very, very useful for her. That is another angle of having it, because right now she's probably the queen in terms of AoE team buffing or speed. So where that also comes into factor is any character that converts speed stat in future into damage or abilities, I think will benefit a lot. That's where speed outperforms action advance, because action advance means you take your turns faster, but any character in future that can use a higher speed stat to do more damage, like for example, your damage is multiplied by your speed, for example, just talking out of my head here, then these two characters likely will be very, very good contenders to buff that particular unit as well. And okay, the next thing I want to talk about maybe is something that is, to some people, maybe you're a bit more confused, versus Tingyun. These two characters have a lot of similarities. They buff attack percentage. She's generally quite skill point positive. She's also generally neutral-ish positive. So both these characters have a lot of similarities, and some of you might be confused. Which one actually is better for what reason? Of course, I'm not saying that either one of them is better than the other. They both have different niches. And I think the niche that really stands out for Hanya is she's not going to be as squishy as a character like Tingyun. Why is Tingyun squishy is because her kit scales with attack percentage, which means you want to build her for as much attack percentage as you can to get the most value out of a kit. Running HP percentage, Planisphere for example, just feel like a waste when you're not maximizing this character. She on the other hand scales off with her speed, and of course, if she builds with a little bit more HP, a bit more tankiness, it doesn't come detriment to her overall kit, which is pretty fine as well. Her ult doesn't do any damage, and most of her kit comes based on the effects that she places, which means she could even run with, for example, effect rest if you needed to make her a bit more sustained, more flexible in terms of the combinations that she can go, definitely not as reliant on like protection, because we know the infamous Tingyun always getting hit by the enemies. I think Hanya in this case will be a bit more survivable compared to her, and teams that generally lack some kind of like survivability or risk being a single target locked down by the enemy. I think that's where she definitely outperforms for the many factors. Of course, she provides a lot of skill points in an indirect sense in how fast your teammates attack. She, on the other hand, focuses more on like hyper carrying a particular character, battering in one particular character, but with the burden ability that she places on the enemy, means that other characters in your slot also can do a little bit more damage. It's just not like purely hyper carry style. At least you are able to help out the other few members of your team just a tad bit as well, which might make a big difference in the memory of chaos when you're trying to run a bit more than just a single hyper carry team. But yeah. And next up, I have the thing in a slight typo, but I'm going to change it. So I want to talk about versatility. So this character, at first glance, seems to not have that much versatility because she's just a skill point buffer. She's physical, sure, she has some speed attack, and that's it. But if you think about it, she is a nihility character and a harmony character merged into one. And that is because her burden skill puts a debuff on the enemy mob. So if she implants burden here, your teammates all do additional damage. In a sense, if you can think of it, it's like something like a Silver Wolf debuff, something like a Gui Knife and debuff on a single target. So it's nice that we have a harmony character that is able to have a pseudo nihility-like element, so to speak. So not only that, she's also very flexible in team compositions that she can do. A lot of the current characters here shine in crit teams, traditional DPS teams, but they don't exactly like super shine in DOT teams. For example, where Asta really shines together with a character like Kafka teams, because not only the burn she does, speed is appreciated by everyone, attack percentage is appreciated by everyone. Hanya works in a very similar fashion, but although like to some extent a little bit more single target, she has the flexibility of going crit teams or whether DOT teams. So I think it's like a little bit more flexible in that sense. And I think this is another option where she can consider. Of course, I probably wouldn't like call this a best in slot for DOT teams, but the fact that she can play into both means she's definitely worthwhile investing in as well. Out of all the five characters here, these two definitely play nicely with DOT teams, especially if you are fighting against a single target big enemy. In the Memory of Chaos, you place the burden, DOT characters do their fancy things, they all have additional damage against burden targets. I think it's very nice too. So yeah, these are some thoughts of where Hanya shines, and if you found this video helpful, do check out the other video on her team comps as well. I think a lot of us are very interested in this character, and thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe for more such videos. See you in the next video.